Hello, people. Andrew here, talking about comics from a reader, collector, speculator, investor point of view, in that order of importance to myself. And today I'm talking about the Longbow Hunters, which was a mini series written by Mike Grell in 1987. Ran for 3 books. Mike Grell worked for DC, started in 1973, did some Green Arrow illustrations in 1976, created his own character that ran for over 100 issues called Warlord. Took a break from that to create his own couple of books, John Sable Freelance, and what was the other one? Starstruck? Star Slayer. So he went on to do that. And then in 1987 or so, he was asked by Mike Gold, who was working as DC, if he would like to write a Green Arrow shorts series. And all about Green Arrow being an urban hunter. Um, Mike Grell liked the idea because he also liked the character of Green Arrow, and so we got the Longbow Hunters. Oliver Queen is now turning the age of 43. So he's aged in the DC universe. The thing with a lot of Mike Grell's material is it's got 1 foot in the DC universe and then it's got 1 foot outside of it into what is referred to as Earth Grell by some of the hierarchy up at DC. Because if Oliver Queen is 43 and if we're strictly in the DC universe, then everybody else has to have aged as well. Batman will be 43, 44, 45, something like that. So everybody would have had to age, and that's not the case. So this is sort of standing just outside of the DC universe and doesn't, as much as it relies and uses some of the information from the previous DC universe, it isn't all encompassing. So Oliver Queen is 43 years old. He's unsure of where he's going to be and where he's going. He has spent a great deal of his life as the Emerald Archer, the Green Arrow, as a superhero, and he reflects back that that was a way to escape daily life. You could disappear into the entity known as Green Arrow and not have to worry about what's going on in Oliver Queen's personal life or anything to do with Oliver Queen. You were just the Green Arrow. You come in, you do your superheroics, and then you disappear. And it was fun. But now he finds that there has to be more out of life than just this. It was fun at the time, but it's time to move on and do something a little bit more um, productive with his own life, with Oliver Queen. Where does Oliver Queen want to go? So it's a reflection back on that sort of stuff, having reached middle age. They tone down, or I say Mike Grell tones down a lot of the heroics that are involved in the specialties of the superhero. For example, Green Arrow used to work out of a fictional city called Star City, and now he works out of Seattle. Diana Lance is his lover, also known as the Black Canary. And she used to have a sonic scream, and it was a superpower, and that's no longer in effect here. She's still an excellent martial artist, but she doesn't have that sonic screen anymore. And gone are all the trick arrows, the boxing glove arrow, the ice arrow, whatever other arrows there were. They're just large, broad faced arrowheads now, capable of wounding and of killing. And the costume changes a little bit. It still looks pretty much Robin Hood oriented, but it is toned down a little bit, and it's a little bit more shadowy because it turns out that Oliver Queen, while he's trying to figure out exactly who he is and what he wants to do, he still likes to hunt. And he still likes to be an archer. So he combines those as to hunt criminals because he still wants justice brought. He still wants criminals brought to justice. He still wants to work for the underdog and for the common people. So he doesn't give up on that. And either does Dinah Lance. She's also, they talk early on in this one about, possibly starting a family. And they say, well, we can't really do that. We're sort of like cops in some respects. That it's a dangerous world out there, and they get involved in a lot of dangerous activities. And Dinah doesn't want to quit that, and Oliver doesn't want to quit that. That's part of who they are. That's part of their makeup, and so it's not quite the time to sort of settle down when they still have these desires to go out on the street and prevent crimes and what have you. And in fact, there's a serial killer, two serial killers working out of Seattle. And at least it seems that there's two serial killers working out of Seattle, and they're hunting these killers. They hunt them separately. Oliver Queen goes in one direction, and Diane Lance follows up a lead involving human trafficking and what have you in another direction. So she's off pursuing her criminal investigation, and he's off pursuing his. And he runs into a character by the name of Shadow, who is also an archer and was also a hunter. She's looking for a family obligation and family honor. That's why she's hunting. And their paths cross, and it's a question of, are you going to try and stop me, or am I going to try and stop you? And there's a mutual respect for one another, but there's that tension about what to do in given a situation and how will you react in these situations. So the relationships develops between Green Arrow and Shadow more so in the final, but I mean they meet and we get to learn a little bit more about them and about her. And then the third and final book is the conclusion of this particular storyline. Dinah finds herself in a lot of trouble, and Oliver Queen's got to make a very tough decision. And he makes a tough decision, and it changes the outlook of the book moving forward when it does get to its own regular series. Because in this particular issue, and here's a spoiler here, he has a choice. He can either wound the villain, or his anger gets to him and he actually kills the villain. So he's taken that step. This would get you booted out of the superhero club if you were to actually kill the villain of the piece. But he makes that conscious decision to do that in rescuing Dinah. And again, that changes his relationship with Shadow. She states at the beginning that, in the beginning when she first saw him, you did not have the eyes of a killer, but that has changed. And that'll change his makeup and what he's thinking moving forward. Overall, I've summarized the whole thing here, and it's still worth a read, even though you got my little broken down bits and pieces. The artwork is fantastic. Mike Grell does a good job of artwork, but it's the colorist. What the heck is her name? Julia Laquiment. I suppose that's how you say it. An excellent colorist. He uses different mediums. You can see it in the artwork itself. Some of it is pencil crayon, some of it is watercolor. So it's a great book to look at and follow the story that's happening there. Very, very good artistically. And I do like the story. It's not as radical now, or because there have been a lot of stories since this. I mean, you got to remember this was written 40 to 50 years ago. The idea of an aging superhero. We've seen a lot of that since. Daredevil did End of Days. Spider-Man did Spider-Man Reign. There was Logan and the Logan movie and all the Old Man books, Old Man Logan, Old Man Hawkeye, and anybody else that has decided to be old. So it's not something that hasn't been addressed since this period of time. But prior to here, that superheroes just did not age, and so having a story of a 43-year-old going through this was something different. It sort of piggybacked in some respects on The Dark Knight Returns, because here you had an aged Batman as well, and there was traction for that kind of story, and people were interested in that kind of story. So this fell into that groove quite nicely, and it sold quite well. I really like the story. I still like the story, and I definitely think it's worth a read. It did so well, in fact, that it was launched into Green Arrow got his first series, first ongoing series. And it was written by Mike Grell. It was a continuation of the storyline from the Longbow Hunters. Now, Mike Grell did not do the artwork. He only did the artwork for one book, issue number 40, which I'll get to. But he did a number of the covers for the book, but it was mainly telling the story. And his story ran from issue 1 through 80. The series itself ran for 137 issues with a couple of little specials and 7 annuals, but Mike Grell's time on it was from 1988 to 1993, where he wrote 80 issues. And again, it was all about the story of Oliver Queen's journey. Many of the stories dealt with social issues and were developed and inspired by headlines read in the newspaper. So there's that sense of realism to them. Mike Grell was saying that at one point in time he was, approached by a woman who says, "You're a misogynist because you have these women as victims in this particular story." And he was saying, I wrote that, but I didn't write that. This is based on information from the news, and so I'm just telling this story because I think it's a story that needs to be told. So there is a lot of reality-based storylines in here. You don't see superheroes. There's no fantastical. There is mixing it up with the CIA, with terrorists, with drug dealers, with human traffickers, with poachers. It's a wide spectrum, but it's all social and political issues. And during this time, he goes on this journey to discover just where he fits into this world. One of the nice things about Mike Grell, I mean, he had different artists working on this: Ed Hannigan, Dennis Cowan, Dan Jurgens, Rick Hoberg. They all worked on it during his 80 issue run. And the nice thing is that Mike Grell, being an artist, when he provides a script or an idea for a story, he doesn't, give every detail for every panel. This is page one, and this is the panel layout. This is what it's going to be in each panel. He allows each of these artists to breathe a little bit and interpret it in their way. And I think it brings out better quality illustrations because of that. None of these particular artists, maybe Dennis Cowan a bit, make it into my very top list or top 20 or whatever, because I think they're good, but there's nothing that I find exceptional about them. But I think they do really good work here. And it's a lot of different panel structure as well. Sometimes you get, a double page spread, a single spread, a large panel, short panels. The other thing that I like about Mike Grell and his writing, because he's an artist and allows this breadth, is that he doesn't feel the need to have heavy narration. There are some writers out there that if they see a picture or an image of the Green Arrow, say, crouching in an alley, pulling back a bow, zeroing in on a target, studying it, they'll start with all kinds of narration of what is the weather like. Is it, there's a chill in the air, and he pulls his cloak just a little tighter as he's, concentrating, and blah, 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 blah. And maybe some internal thought bubbles as well, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't always happen in a Mike Grell story. It's just the panels. You just follow the panels without any narration or thought balloons or dialogue, and it's quite nice. It's a very light and easy read because of that. But you get it doesn't interfere, with sometimes the narration. I find it does interfere with the story. Just tell the story. Let the art tell the story, and Mike Grell does a fair amount of that in this book, in this series. So it was a good series again because of that. As I say, he's going on his journey to try and find out just exactly who he is and what his role is in all of this, and it carries on for 80 issues or so. And it's sort of like 1 foot in the DC universe and 1 foot outside of it. This would be the first issue. And although Mike Grell did not do the interiors, he did do a number of covers. Not all of the covers, but he did some of the covers. This is one of those covers, and this is, I find, to be a very good idea of what we're looking at here as far as what this whole Green Arrow series is about, because he's a hunter, a tracker. He, almost like a bounty hunter, and he's sometimes it's because some of the people have asked him to do this sort of thing, but other times it's just I see this criminal element happening within my city and my jurisdiction or wherever it is. I'm going to get to the bottom of that. He does work with the police. I mean, he's known to the police. He does make a contact with a CIA agent by the name of Eddie Fires, and so he's he's a known entity within Seattle. He does get into some trouble sometimes, and he gets framed for a couple of things in some of these issues. He also gets abducted and abused in a number of issues. He has a hard go of it. It is a struggle, but it is an interesting one. Shadow returns three times throughout Mike Grell's run, and each time it's like a 4-chapter series, and this is the first of those. This is what, issue number 9. And those are some of the better stories, and I think it's because he likes that character. I mean, the four main characters I would say would be would be Oliver Queen obviously and Diana Lance, but there's Eddie Fires guy from the CIA. He keeps showing up again and again, and also Shadow. And I think he likes writing this mix of characters. There's other characters, of course, as well, but these tend to show up, and the stories with Shadow tend to be a little bit more intense, not as light, but they're all very good stories. This is issue number 19. So at one point in time, again, he struggles, Oliver Queen struggles with where he's going, and he meets up with Hal Jordan, who is Green Lantern. But Green Lantern doesn't show up in these two issues here. It's just Hal Jordan. It's just, they shared a lot of the time in the Green Lantern, Green Arrow stories on the road trips, etc., etc. So now it's just their friendship that is brought into play for these two issues. Oliver Queen is having some issues and some problems getting over some certain things, and it's Hal Jordan that just sits there and talks, and they camp and have a beer and figure things out. That's what friends do. Shadow's back in issue number 21 for another 4-part series. And again, I do like all of the stuff that involves Shadow. And I like these covers too. In issue 27 and 28, Mike Grell's other character, Warlord, takes a turn in Green Arrow, a 2-issue series. So I just thought that'd be interesting. And once again, we get some more Shadow material with the Black Arrow, starting in issue number 35, runs for 4 issues as well. I do like her design. Issue 40 is the one book that Mike Grell illustrates as well as writes. It's the only book that he illustrates. He does the cover as well. So if you like Mike Grell's material, and I do like Mike Grell's material, it's kind of a I won't say a simplistic style to it. I mean, it's not overly shadowed, not overly texturized, but it's good quality and good composition. I just have this one here because who does not like a cover of an elephant? 50th issue, again, this is partly if you're a collector for things, they do make a note of the 50th issue itself, and this is a Mike Grell cover. You can see the Seattle Space Needle in the reflection of the pond or puddle or whatever it is. This one is just because I liked the cover. I did say that there were, what did I say? Did I say 3 or 4 of the Shadow stories? But there's actually, by the looks of it, there are 4 of them. So there are 4 times that Shadow crosses paths after Longbow Hunters. You got the 75th special issue, and it goes into a lot of the details of things that have happened. And finally, you got the 80th issue, which is the end of Mike Grell's run on it. And from here, the book does not cancel. It goes on to a different writer. And it's unfortunate that a lot of what's happened in these 80 issues, plus the Longbow Hunters, is sort of discarded in the long run. When they go back into the Rebirth and the New 52, I haven't read all of the Green Arrow material from that, but from what I read, it seems like it's really mixed up and messed up a lot of the information and history that was brought to bear within here. And I understand why they couldn't use it all, because at 43 years old, it would have been difficult to incorporate that directly into the DC universe. Because as I say, you have to age all these other characters, and that wasn't likely to happen. But some of the other ways that they twisted some of the stories and the series of events and the way that they happened, I had to disagree with what I read. And I want to point out one final issue here, and this is the annual, because as I said, there were 6 annuals during Mike Grell's time and a 7th one afterwards. This is the 4th annual, the 50th anniversary of Green Arrow, and it's got a Mike Grell cover. I want to point it out only because it was co-written by a guy by the name of Mark Ryan. Mark Ryan is an actor. You may know him from Black Sails because he was in the first season of Black Sails, but I knew him from a series called Robin of Sherwood from 84 to 86. I had it around here. Oh, here we are. Yeah. So Robin of Sherwood was a British show. And if you've never seen Robin of Sherwood, it ran for 3 seasons, 26 episodes entirely. So, and it had music by Clannad. I like Clannad. And it was a story about Robin Hood. And if you ever get a chance to see it, I highly recommend that series, Robin of Sherwood from 1984. Mark Ryan played a character by the name of, what was his name? Nazir the Saracen. So I thought that was very interesting that he was carried over into this particular book and helped write annual number 4. Okay, so is it worth a read? Well, from judging from what I've said, the answer is yes. It is. It is worth a read. I enjoy going back to it from time to time. Again, it stands a little bit outside of the DC universe, but it works on its own. Does Ollie reach the end of his journey by the end of the 80th issue? No, and Mike Grell even said that there's more stuff that he could have written about this, but he moved on to other projects, including his own project called Shaman's Tears that he wanted to write. And I don't know, perhaps by 93 there was that the whole comic boom and bust was going on. It was sort of, at the cusp of the boom, and there was a change in what people were looking for, and it's possible that there was let's change the direction, because the Green Arrow that follows this, which I'll talk about at some other time, almost automatically brings it back to the superhero elements of his character. And in fact, he goes on an adventure very early in the next series where he crosses paths with a number of members of the DC universe just to say, hey, look, Green Arrow's back. But I really liked this series, and it does sort of stand alone on its own. The Longbow Hunters, followed by the 80 issues by Mike Grell. So for me, it's very much worth the read, even though the lore changes as time goes on. As far as collections are concerned, I showed a number of books that I think would be involved in a collection. Like if you were interested in the Green Lantern and everything Green Lantern, or even just the team up of the two, those two issues, 19 and 20, could probably be overlooked by a number of people because there's no indication that Green Lantern's in this book. And he's not. It's Hal Jordan, but Hal Jordan is Green Lantern. So there's that. There's, the Warlord shows up. There's a couple of anniversary issues that are involved in here, but there's no big crossovers of any kind. So that brings down to speculation. Is there any book here worth speculating on? And, if anything, that would have been issue number 1 of the Longbow Hunters, because that's when you would be introduced to Shadow. And it's interesting that when this book first came out in 87, shortly after that it became the boom period for comic books in general. And DC was doing well, as I say, with Dark Knight Returns, with Watchmen, with some of these what they call more mature titles, that the Longbow Hunters, for a brief period of time, was not, I don't call it a hot book, but definitely warm. And each one of the individual issues, like in about 1990 or so, was selling for about $20 to $30 a piece, which would be equivalent to about $50 now. So there was people were interested in buying that, and it did become part of that hot market. I will say this though, as far as spec is concerned, all of these books, well, you can find them in the dollar bin now. I bought the bulk of this collection, including the Longbow Hunters 1, 2, and 3, for 10 cents a piece in the late 90s. Because in the late 90s, a lot of the comic book stores, a lot of people had tons of books that they just dumped off because they were no longer interested in the hobby. They discovered that it didn't make them the quick, $1,000, $10,000, $20,000 that they were hoping for, and they had all of these boxes of stuff just to get it out of my house. And there was tons of material out there, tons. So I went to a sale in the spring of, I don't know, 1995, 96, something like that. And he had all these boxes on sale where every book was 10 cents, and I ended up spending like $150 over 3 visits because it was like a 2 or 3 week sale, and ended up with like 1,500 books, including a big chunk of the Green Arrow run. Now you can still find a lot of the Green Arrow material in the dollar bins, including the Longbow Hunters. So I would not. Uh, I mean, as a spec book, the Longbow Hunters number 1 because it also introduces shadow. But beyond that, I would say no for this particular stretch of the run for these 80 plus the Longbow Hunters. Nothing that I would get graded. As I said, I'm still finding them in the dollar bin. I think it's a great read, and I think that if you can find the Longbow Hunters in a dollar bin for $1 a piece, that is a steal because it's an enjoyable read. And that's really what I enjoy most of is being able to read these books, and that's incredibly inexpensive. And as I say, the rest of the series is very easy to find, and it's very inexpensive. I really like Green Arrow. In summation of everything, I like Green Arrow, and this is what attracted me to the Green Arrow books and why I continue to read them is because my first introduction to the character was through this Mike Grell material. When I had bought all that stuff at 10 cents a piece, I just had heard that it was a good series and it was worth a read, and it turns out that that was very true, and I'll pick it up at that price at any day. So read it. It's a very good series to read. It still holds up. There's times that some of the issues, as I say, because we've already gone 40, 50 years beyond this point, it's not so groundbreaking now, more so back then, but it is still a good, solid read. And unfortunately, some of the social issues and political issues that are brought up are still in effect today. Does Ollie make it to the end of his journey? No. Mike Grell even said that, as I said, that he had more that he could have told. So, the journey is incomplete. So, in some respects, you could say, well, it's an incomplete story even after 80 issues. But it is really about the journey and all of these tales within that journey. It's a good read. Pick it up. Enjoy it. That's what I got to say about this part of the Green Arrow. Next time I talk about Green Arrow, I'll talk about the second half from 81 to 137. But until then, be good to yourself, be good to others, and we'll talk again soon.